All right, Gigi here, and this is Let's Build. If this is your first time, I build a Lego set, time to different media, and talk about the facts concerning the topic of the build. Today's build is part 1 of the Lego Pokemon Venusaur, Charizard, and Blastoise versus Pokemon LeafGreen. All footage I'm using is for science, educational, and research purposes. My content is transformative and protected under fair use. All footage is time-lapse with commentary. I apologize in advance for pronouncing names or places incorrectly. This is week 13 of braces. Spoilers ahead, you've been warned. I will be breaking this build into 3 parts, 1 episode per Pokemon, and I will be going in order of the build instructions. Specifications, focusing on Venusaur. Recreate the pinnacle of your Pokemon training journey with the epic Venusaur, Charizard, and Blastoise model building kit for adults. This Pokemon figure set includes 3 iconic grass, fire, and water-type Pokemon in their final evolution forms, evoking memories of your mastery as a trainer. This epic set includes Pokemon Battle action figure Venusaur, which has movable vines and feet. As a surprise, this Pokemon model kit hides an Easter egg waiting to be discovered. This figure can stand alone or be mounted on a stand that comprises a jungle biome, representing the Pokemon's type and making one epic battleground. This building kit is part of a range of LEGO sets for adults, each sold separately, celebrating a collaboration between 2 beloved brands. This 6,838-piece collectible Pokemon building set includes Venusaur and stands over 9 inches tall. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a breakdown of how many pieces per Pokemon, only the total. Pokedex. The flower on its back catches the sun's rays. Bio. While it basks in the sun, it can convert the light into energy. As a result, it is more powerful in the summertime. This relatively peaceful LEGO Pokemon Venusaur can thrive anywhere, even out of the sunlight. From the LEGO Pokemon Trainers. Venusaur, Charizard, and Blastoise are 3 of the most sought-after Pokemon in the digital games and the trading card game, and now you can collect and build them together. The final evolutions of the first partner Pokemon from the Kanto region are live characters. At least they feel that way to us. And we've shown them in dynamic poses to reflect their big personalities. You might discover a few hidden hints of their types inside. Big personalities deserve a big display. We experimented with different ways to blend their environments and color palettes into one huge model. We've used fun and challenging building techniques to shape the 3 awesome Pokemon and the platform. Each is showcased in its natural habitat, a lush jungle for Venusaur. Venusaur is a grass poison-type Pokemon introduced in Generation 1. Venusaur is a large quadrupedal Pokemon with a turquoise body. It has small red eyes and several large ferns on its back and head. Its mouth is wide with 2 pointed teeth in the upper jaw and 4 in the lower jaw. On top of its head are small pointed ears with reddish-pink insides. It has 3 clawed toes on each foot. The bud on its back bloomed into a large pink and white spotted flower. The flower is supported by a thick brown trunk surrounded by green fronds. The female has a seed in the center. Venusaur is inspired by toads and the horned frog. The large flower is similar to the Rafflesia arnaldii, a parasitic plant with an unpleasant odor, referencing the Pokemon's poison type. Venusaur evolves from Ivysaur and is the final form of Bulbasaur. Venusaur is notable for being the final evolution stage of one of the original starter Pokemon, along with Charizard and Blastoise. It has a Mega Evolution available in Generation 6 games and Pokemon Go. It also has a Gigantamax form available in Pokemon Sword and Shield, with an exclusive G-Max move, G-Max Vine Lash. Venusaur uses its flower to catch the sun's rays to convert them into energy, which causes the flower to become more vibrant along with a nutritious diet. The flower releases a soothing scent that attracts Pokemon and calms emotions and can heal the human heart. This scent becomes stronger after a rainy day. Venusaur is at its strongest in the summertime when there is much more sunlight to absorb. In the Pokemon the series, The Beginning episode Bulbasaur's Mysterious Garden, Venusaur has demonstrated the ability to manipulate nature, release several vines from its back, and lead evolution ceremonies for Bulbasaur and Ivysaur. This Pokemon is rarely found in the wild, but it has been known to inhabit grasslands. As shown in Pokemon Sleep, Venusaur releases a soothing fragrance while sleeping. Concept and development. An early design of Venusaur was shown in the original Capsule Monsters pitch to Nintendo. However, it had Ivysaur's final index number and name. Origin. According to Ken Sugimori in a Japanese interview discussing the Pokemon franchise, Venusaur and its pre-evolutions were inspired by frogs. In particular, its short legs, stout appearance, ear-like protrusions on its head, and the thick fat ability on Mega Ivysaur together make it resemble horned frogs. Unlike Bulbasaur, Venusaur's ears have hollows, indicating that they are in fact ears and not glands, as seen in many species of frogs and toads. Name origin. Venusaur may be a combination of Venus, referring to the Venus flytrap plant, or venom, and dinosaur or saurus, common suffix used in the names of extinct reptilian creatures derived from the ancient Greek word for lizard. Fushigibana may be a combination of fushigi, strange, mysterious, and hana, flower. Forms. Venusaur has two forms, Mega Venusaur and Gigantamax Venusaur. Mega Venusaur. Mega Venusaur's flower grows more prominent, and two smaller pink flowers bloom, one on its forehead and one on its rear. Additional leaves with woody stems, supported by vines, are also grown around the flower. Mega Venusaur also develops dark markings on its forehead below the new flower on its forehead. Mega Venusaur's leg and back have become sturdier to support the extra weight of the flower, and its increased defenses allow it to withstand just about any attack. It can create brambles from its flower, which it can absorb energy from to heal itself, fire a light beam attack after charging, and form poisonous circle around itself to attack foes. Gigantamax Venusaur. As a Gigantamax Venusaur, it becomes larger with its flower blooming even further, covering its whole body. These flowers have a taller bud and extraordinarily thick, springy petals capable of shielding Gigantamax Venusaur. Its eyes have light green sclerae and orange irises. More foliage grows from under its flower, and the trunk supporting it becomes shorter. It has several light green markings located at the belly. Gigantamax Venusaur attacks with its thick vines, which are powerful enough to topple down a 10-story building. Gigantamax Venusaur's flower can similarly spread enough pollen to resemble a volcanic eruption. Breathing in this pollen can cause uncontrollable sneezing, and inhaling large amounts can even cause fainting. However, this pollen also promotes plant growth in areas where it lands. Gigantamax Venusaur is the only known Pokemon capable of using the G-Max move G-Max Vinelash. In the Brazilian Portuguese dub of the animated series, Venusaur is intentionally referred to as Venusauro, despite its name still maintaining the English spelling in written media. The same is true for its pre-evolved forms. Venusaur shares its category with its pre-evolved forms and Sunkern. They are all known as the Seed Pokemon. Venusaur's number in the National Pokédex and the Fior browser were the same, 003. Venusaur's evolutionary line is the only first partner Pokemon evolutionary line to have the poison type. Venusaur's evolutionary line is also the only first partner Pokemon evolutionary line to have each member appear at least once in the Super Smash Bros. Series. Venusaur is the first Pokemon in the National Pokédex order to have gender differences. Venusaur shares its height, 6 feet 7 inches, weight, 220.5 pounds, and egg groups, monster and grass, with another grass-type Pokemon, Tropius. If the player chooses Charmander as their first partner Pokemon in Pokemon Red or Blue, it locks themselves out of receiving Bulbasaur in Pokemon Yellow. It is impossible to get Venusaur registered in the Pokedex without trading, as no NPC in said games uses a Venusaur except the rival if the player chooses Squirtle. In Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green, Cool Trainer Albert uses a Venusaur in knockout mode at the Trainer Tower. Due to the censor that prevents Pokemon with offensive nicknames being traded on the GTS, a Venusaur with an English name could not be traded on the GTS without a nickname in Generation 5. Venusaur is the only Pokemon to be a mascot for a Japan-exclusive core game. In Pokemon the Series XY, Nahie and Venusaur from Ninja Village might be a reference to Jiraiya, a frog-riding figure in Japanese folklore. Mega Venusaur and Mega Blastoise from the XY set were the first Mega Evolved Pokemon to be featured in the Pokemon trading card game. Venusaur is among Ken Sugimori's favorite Pokemon. However, it is his least favorite Pokemon to draw due to its complex design. Pokemon Fire Red version and Pokemon Leaf Green version are a pair of Core Series Generation 3 Pokemon games that are set in the Kanto region. They were released in Japan on January 29, 2004, in North America on September 9, 2004, in Australia September 23, 2004, and in Europe on October 1, 2004. As the first remakes in the Pokemon franchise, the games revisit the original pair of Pokemon games, Pokemon Red and Green versions. The remakes feature the characters, plot elements, and challenges from the originals, along with several updates introduced in Generation 3. The Game Boy Advance wireless adapter was initially included with the games when they were first released, eliminating the need for Game Link cables when trading between the two games, and later Pokemon Emerald. In later copies, it was sold separately. Fire Red and Leaf Green went on to become the second best-selling games on the Game Boy Advance, only behind Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire. They also received Nintendo's Player's Choice Awards, the only Core Series games to receive such an award. Fire Red and Leaf Green are the first two remakes to take the place in the Kanto region, and were followed by Generation 7 games Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee in 2018. Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green were re-released for the Nintendo Switch as Nintendo eShop exclusive titles on February 27, 2026, during Pokemon Presents, to coincide with the Pokemon 30th anniversary. The plot follows the same storyline as Generation 1, with the player beginning in Pallet Town. After meeting up with Professor Oak while trying to leave for Route 1, both the player and their rival are asked by Oak to choose a first partner Pokemon, Bulbasaur, Charmander, or Squirtle, from the desk near him. Oak allows the players to choose first, and the rival quickly gets jealous, chooses the first partner Pokemon whose type is super effective against the player's first Pokemon, then challenges the player to a battle. During this battle, Professor Oak commentates. After the battle, Oak allows the two new trainers to leave for their journey across Kanto. Stopping in at Viridian City's Pokemart, the player will find that a package has come in for the professor, and the clerk asks that it be delivered to him. After this has been completed, the professor gives one Pokedex to the player and one to the rival, and sends them on their way. Viridian City has a gym, however, it is locked. From here, the player has their first encounter with other trainers on Route 2 and in Viridian Forest, and their first encounter with the gym leader Brock, the rock-type gym leader of Pewter City. After his defeat, journeying along Route 3 and through Mount Moon brings the player face-to-face with the regional villainous team, Team Rocket, who are attempting to extract rare fossils from the cave. Their defeat allows the player to continue through the cave, obtain the dome fossil or helix fossil. I chose the dome fossil, which can be regenerated into Kabuto and Ammonite, and continue onto Route 4, which leads directly to Cerulean City, where another gym is. This one, however, is run by Misty, and specializes in Water-type Pokémon. To the north as well are two routes leading up to Bill's cottage. On the way, the player is confronted with a trainer who tries to persuade them to join Team Rocket. When the player reaches Bill's cottage and frees him from his transformation into a Clefairy, he will give the player a ticket for the SS Anne, a luxury ship moored in Vermilion Harbor and filled with trainers. Taking a shortcut through a house burglarized by Team Rocket, the player finally arrives in Route 5. After traveling down Routes 5 and 6, using the underground path to bypass Saffron City, the player finally arrives in Vermilion. This city is home to another Pokemon gym, however, the way to it is blocked by a small tree. The only thing to do now is to show the ticket to the sailor guarding the harbor, allowing entry onto the SS Anne. It is here, after assisting the captain with his seasickness, that the player will obtain the first of 7 hidden machines available in the game, containing Cut. With this and the Cascade badge, the tree blocking the way to Vermilion Gym can easily be cut through, and Lieutenant Surge, a gym leader specializing in electric types, can be challenged. From here, Route 11 beckons, as does Diglett's Cave, through which is the only way to get back to Route 2, and a second HM containing Flash held by one of Professor Oak's aides on Route 2. The player takes a brief detour to Pewter City's museum's back entrance, which was previously blocked due to a cuttable tree, which can now easily be bypassed. The player obtains the old amber in the museum. Heading back to Diglett's Cave and to Vermilion, the player must go to Cerulean and to the east onto Route 9 toward the Rock Tunnel. The Rock Tunnel, a still undeveloped natural tunnel between the sections of Route 10, is pitch black inside. For this reason, Flash is recommended, but not required for navigation. Finally reaching Lavender Town, the only town in Kanto without a Pokemon gym besides Pallet Town, there is not much to do. The local Pokemon Tower is haunted. From here, Route 8 leads to Saffron City, but it again must be bypassed by way of another underground path, which has its other entrance on Route 7, on the west side of Saffron. Celadon City, the home of the 4th gym which specializes in grass-type Pokemon, is just a short walk further. Like the Vermilion Gym, the Celadon Gym also has a small tree blocking the way to its entrance and an old man outside, peeping in the windows. The Rocket Game Corner in Celadon is not what it appears to be. In fact, the Game Corner itself is merely the above-ground portion of a sprawling underground complex, the Rocket Hideout. The Team Rocket boss, Giovanni, appears for the first time here, and after his defeat, flees, leaving behind a Sylph Scope. A Sylph Scope is required to fully navigate the Pokemon Tower inside of Lavender Town. After this, the Pokemon Tower can be navigated, and the ghosts haunting it are revealed to be Ghastly and Haunter. In front of the stairs to the final floor, blocking the way, is also a final spirit, that of the deceased Marowak that was killed by Team Rocket when they captured her child. Making it all the way to the top reveals Mr. Fuji held hostage by Team Rocket grunts, who will leave when they are defeated. Fuji gives away the Poke Flute, and with that, the Snorlax blocking Route 11 and Route 16 can finally be moved. Another HM containing Fly can be obtained easily by cutting away a tree blocking the northern section of Route 16. Now the player is presented with a choice of how to get to Fuchsia City. Traveling down either way the Snorlax are blocking, a faster way via routes 16, 17, and 18 on Cycling Road, or down the Silence Bridge of routes 12, 13, 14, and 15, inevitably brings the player to the southernmost city in continental Kanto, Fuchsia City, home of Koga of the Poisonous Fuchsia Gym, and the Kanto Safari Zone. The Safari Zone is currently running a contest. The person to reach a specific rest house first will win yet another HM containing Surf. Finding the Safari Zone Warden's gold teeth will also have him reward the player with the final of Kanto's HMs containing Strength. The player goes back to either Celadon City or Lavender Town, encountering the other Snorlax on the way back. After stopping off at the Celadon Mansion and getting some tea, Saffron City can finally be entered. However, Team Rocket is guarding almost every door in the city, including that of the local Pokemon gym. One of the open buildings, however, is the unofficial fighting-type Pokemon gym. After the player defeats the fighting dojo, they are entitled to either a Hitmonchan or Hitmonlee. The city's centerpiece building, Silphco's headquarters, has been infiltrated by the organization, and at the top, waiting in the boardroom, is the Team Rocket boss, Giovanni, appearing for a second time, demanding that the president give him the Master Ball that the company had developed. After his defeat, he flees. After Team Rocket clears out of Saffron City, all buildings previously locked are now open, as well as the gym. The gym leader, Sabrina, specializes in psychic types. The floor, as well, is covered in warp tiles that make it difficult to navigate. After Sabrina's defeat, the player makes their way back to Fuchsia City again and heads out to obtain the rest of the badges. With 6 badges in hand and 5 HMs in the TM case, finally the player can adventure onto the open sea of routes 19 and 20. A short way across them, of course, is a minor obstacle, the Seafoam Islands. After they have been navigated, the player can continue on to Route 20 to Cinnabar Island, home of Blaine's Fire-type gym. There are also several more facilities on the island, including one that actually revives Pokemon fossils. After Blaine's defeat, Bill shows up again because he needs help in a small region south of Kanto, the Sevi Islands. If the player accepts, the Sea Gallop Ferry will travel to one island where a friend of Bill's, Celio, is attempting to connect the island's PC system to that of Kanto. During this, there is also a crisis in 2 Island, where the daughter of the owner of the Joyful Game Corner has gone missing, and in 3 Island, where a group of invading bikers are causing trouble. After defeating them and finding the lost girl, Lostel, who is in the Berry Forest, Bill and the player will return to Kanto, where the final gym, that of Viridian City, lies. Finally unlocked, the gym, whose leader specializes in ground types, is revealed to be none other than the boss of Team Rocket himself, Giovanni. After his defeat, he vows to disband Team Rocket and disappears. Now, with 8 badges, all that lies ahead is the Pokemon League at Indigo Plateau, conveniently at the end of Route 23. The Elite Four await challengers, those who have proven themselves worthy by getting all 8 badges and making it through Victory Road will face them in order. Lorelei, who trains Ice-type Pokemon, is first, followed by Bruno, whose specialty is fighting, Agatha, whose specialty is Ghost, and finally Lance, who specializes in Dragon types. After defeating these 4, the reigning Pokemon champion challenges the player to a final battle, and the champion is none other than the player's own rival. After his defeat, Oak arrives and tells the player that they won because they care better for their Pokemon, and the player's current party are added to the Hall of Fame. After the credits roll, the player is back in Pallet Town. Professor Oak will have the player come to his lab to check on the Pokedex. If the player has obtained at least 60 Pokemon, he will then upgrade it to a national Pokedex and ask the player to go back to the Sevi Islands to encounter Pokemon that Professor Oak has never seen before. There's some more work that Celio needs to do on his network machine, as he wishes to link yet another region. The signal, however, is not strong enough, and he needs the Ruby and the Sapphire, 2 items found in the Sevi Islands, to strengthen it. The Ruby is found deep in a cave in Mount Ember, which Team Rocket grunts have been seen fooling around with. The Sapphire lies at the deepest part of the dotted hole in Ruin Valley. The Ruby can be given to Cilio without a hitch. However, the Sapphire, when found, is stolen by a scientist named Gideon, who takes it back to Team Rocket's warehouse on the 5 Island Meadow. By infiltrating the warehouse and defeating the remaining Rocket admins, they realize that Giovanni has disbanded Team Rocket. They do, however, vow to return one day and bring Team Rocket back to its former glory. Gideon reluctantly gives back the Sapphire, and after this, trades are possible with the Hoenn-based Pokemon Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald. The Elite Four can once again be challenged, and their Pokemon are 12 levels higher, with some of them possessing new Pokemon. In addition, Cerulean Cave is now open, and the powerful Mewtwo can be found there. Entei, Suicune, and Raikou can also begin roaming around the Kanto region, depending on whether the player chose Bulbasaur, Charmander, or Squirtle, respectively, as their first partner Pokemon. Changes from Pokemon Red and Green. A new female character, Leaf, is introduced as an alternative to the male character Red, who is the only playable character in Generation 1. A resume feature was introduced, allowing players to remember the four most important events they achieved in the games last time they were played. After entering the Hall of Fame, the resume feature displays the last four notable things the player has done recently instead of showing a specific event. A game introduction feature, which explains the control of the game, was added. This feature continued to appear in all games in Generation 4. The help system was added, which can be activated by pressing the L or R buttons on the console. There's also another help feature in the form of Teachy TV, which is given by an old man in Viridian City. A new southern region, the Sevi Islands, is accessible, where Generation 2 Pokemon can be caught. Notably, most of these Pokemon cannot be found in Pokemon Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald. Pokemon attacks now use Generation 3 mechanics instead of Gen 1, such as Bite now being a Dark-type move. Team Rocket has an expanded role in the game's post-game storyline, with a new base in the Sevi Islands. Pokemon can breed in the Pokemon Daycare on 4 Island. The daycare on Route 5 remains, but it is still limited to only caring for one Pokemon at a time. The ability Pickup has been modified from Ruby and Sapphire, which also includes some of the berries from those versions that can be picked up in Fire Red and Leaf Green. This is due to the inability to grow berries in Kanto. The other berries can be collected by trading Pokemon from those versions as well as Emerald. A man is present in a house in Cerulean City and will help create berry powder via Berry Crush. This powder can then be exchanged for rare and valuable items. Trainers outdoors can be rebattled using the Versus Seeker. Information on major characters, such as gym leaders, is recorded in the Fame Checker. The item finder can now detect hidden coins in the Rocket Game Corner. 3 additional aids for Professor Oak have been added to reward the player with items that were introduced in Generations 2 and 3, while a returning aid now gives out the Experience Share, the upgraded version of the Gen 1 item Experience All. Pokemon move lists are updated to include moves introduced in Generation 2 and Gen 3. The TM list is shared with other Gen 3 games. In addition, move tutors become available to teach move formerly contained in Gen 1 TMs. The Elite Four and Champion can be rebattled, and acquire Gen 2 Pokemon on their teams after the Sevi Islands quest has been completed. Blast Burn, Frenzy Plant, and Hydro Cannon are now available as move tutor moves at Cape Brink on 2 Island. They can be taught to the final evolved form of the player's first partner Pokemon, or other members of that same species. There is a new minigame corner, the Joyful Game Corner, on 2 Island, where players can connect together along with Emerald and play multiplayer minigames, Pokemon Jump and Dodrio Berry Picking, over the wireless communication system. This feature becomes unusable after the events at 3 Island. Cerulean Cave in these games is very similar to the one in Red and Green. The only difference is the Gen 3 edition of Breakable Rocks. It is now possible to fly to the Pokemon Centers on Routes 4 and 10. During the first battle against the rival, Professor Oak now explains how a Pokemon battle works. After trainer tip signs are added or have their contents changed, including one added in Pallet Town that is being read by a girl at first. If the player attempts to leave Pallet Town after receiving their first partner Pokemon without having pressed start, talking to that girl or reading what the sign says, she will block the exit leading to Route 1 and say she copied what the sign says by forcing the player to read it, which simply states, "Press start to open the menu." Version-exclusive Pokemon. The following Pokemon are only obtainable in the LeafGreen version of this pair of games. In order to obtain Pokemon exclusive to the other game, they must be traded either from that game or from another compatible game from Gen 3 that has that Pokemon available. In addition, Mew, several Gen 2 Pokemon, and all Gen 3 Pokemon, except for Azurill, Wynaut, and Deoxys, must be traded from a Hoenn-based game. Leaf Green Pokemon, Sandshrew, Sandslash, Vulpix, Ninetales, Bellsprout, Weeping Bell, Victory Bell, Slowpoke, Slowbro, Staryu, Starmie, Magmar, Pinsir, Marill, Azumarill, Slowking, Mischievous, Sneasel, Remoraid, Octillery, Mantine, Magby, Azurill, Deoxys defense form. Music. The music has been remixed to take advantage of the Game Boy Advance's power. Most of these themes remain the same, with some exceptions. In Gen 1, the power plant used Rocket Hideout theme. In Leaf Green, the power plant uses the Pokemon Mansion theme. In Gen 1, the standard trainer battle music was used for 3 of the Elite Four members other than Lance, which used Gym Leader battle theme. In Leaf Green, the Gym Leader background music is used for all 4 gym members. When Professor Oak congratulates the player after becoming the Pokemon League champion, a slower version of the theme from Viridian City, Pewter City, and Saffron City is played. In Leaf Green, a happier tone version of the Pallet Town music is played in the background at this point. Some places in the Sevi Islands used remix versions of Johto music themes from Silver, Gold, and Crystal. Connectivity. Fire Red and Leaf Green were created as a result of the first Gen 3 games, Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, lacking backward compatibility with Gens 1 and 2. Trading between these games and the third Hoenn-based game, Pokemon Emerald, is possible through the traditional Game Link cable. Trading with other copies of Fire Red or Leaf Green, as well as with Emerald, may also be done through the GBA wireless adapter, though Ruby and Sapphire are not compatible with it. Using a GameCube GBA cable, players may also trade party Pokemon with Pokemon Coliseum and Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness. In order to trade with the Hoenn and Ore-based games, the player has to have obtained the Ruby and Sapphire given to them by Celio, obtained the National Pokédex in Emerald, and completed the main storyline of Coliseum or XD. While Fire Red and Leaf Green cannot trade directly with the Gen 4 games Pokemon Diamond, Pearl, Platinum, Heart Gold, and Soul Silver, a player's Pokemon may be permanently transferred to those games via Pal Park, and some Gen 1 Pokemon can be found using dual slot mode. Reception. The games were praised by critics for maintaining the same storyline as the original versions, and also for incorporating new events. Criticism was received, however, for the lack of geographical improvement from Ruby and Sapphire. Generally, the games scored highly. Nintendo Power Magazine gave them 4.5 out of 5, while IGM rated the games an amazing 9 out of 10. Eurogamer, though, criticized the lack of evolution from the series, giving the remakes a 7 out of 10. Gaming magazine Famitsu gave the games a score of 33 out of 40. Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green hold a rating of 81.92% and 80.78% respectively on Game Rankings. Sales. Fire Red and Leaf Green received strong sales, although weaker than Ruby and Sapphire. Over 1 million copies were sold in Japan over the first 4 days of release. In the fiscal year of their release, they sold more than 2 million units. As of March 31st, 2013, Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green have sold 12 million copies worldwide, making these the lowest selling remakes of the core series games. Music. The soundtrack contains all of the background music from the games, composed by Junichi Masuda, Go Ichinose, and Morikazu Aoki. Much of the music is remixed from Game Boy Entire Pokemon Sounds Collection CD, the soundtrack for Pokemon Red and Green and Pokemon Red and Blue. Development. Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green were announced September 2003 as Game Boy Advance remakes of Pokemon Red and Green that are compatible with Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, as well as the then unreleased Pokemon Colosseum for the GameCube. Game Freak's Junichi Masuda stated that these games were developed around the idea of simplicity. The introduction of the Game Boy Advance wireless adapter was touted as one of the new features in Fire Red and Leaf Green, the first titles to support and include it as part of the core experience. Former Nintendo president Satoru Iwata praised the wireless adapter for its enhancements to multiplayer functionality, including in Pokemon games. Tsunekazu Ishihara, CEO of the Pokemon Company, was questioned about the reason behind the remakes of Red and Green in an interview with IGN at E3 in 2004, and declared that they did not see Fire Red and Leaf Green as remakes, but rather as new games sporting wireless functionality. We don't feel that this is a remake at all. We feel that this is a new game with wireless technology. The reason that they are Red and Green is that they were the most popular games in the Pokemon series, and we wanted to introduce the concept again for the GBA. And it's been 8 years since Red and Blue, so our target audience changed at that time, and the new audience will see Pikachu or Charizard as new characters. When asked about Satoshi Tajiri's involvement in Pokemon, Ishihara stated that he oversaw the whole development process of Fire Red and Leaf Green, including the text. It's really Mr. Tajiri's creation, and this is a whole new version of his creation. So he supervised the whole process and the new text. He oversaw all the new features and added to his creation. According to Junichi Masuda, Leaf Green was not retitled to match Blue internationally for the following reasons. A leaf is a symbol of peace, while fire and water are opposing concepts and thus would seem more like conflict. A leaf is also easier concept to grasp and translate into other languages. And in this world of conflicts, the creators wanted to give a name suggestive of a peaceful world. The developers also wanted a colorful drawing of a Bulbasaur family member on the box art. Masuda explains that, as the legendary Pokemon, creating a title for each Pokemon game that can be used and easily understood in all countries is not an easy task. Unique content. In the core series, Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green are the only games with these characteristics. They are the only games released between a game that is its update version in the same gen. Specifically, they were released after Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, but before Pokemon Emerald. They are the only remakes that were originally released for a system that could also play their original versions via backwards compatibility. They are the only games where evolving into a Pokemon outside the regional Pokédex, such as a Gloom into a Blossom, only becomes possible after the player obtains the National Pokédex. They are the only games where a Pokemon cannot evolve based on time due to the lack of this feature, even though the games are compatible with the evolved forms. In this case, Eevee cannot evolve into an Espeon or an Umbreon, but the evolved forms can be traded from the other games. They are the only games featuring the TM case instead of storing the TMs directly in the bag. They are the only games featuring the berry pouch instead of storing berries directly in the bag. Pokemon Fire Red is the only game where only one Pokemon, why not, from a particular generation can be obtained outside of trading or events. Leaf Green is the only game where only two Pokemon, Why and Azurill, from a particular gen can be obtained outside of trading or events. They are the games with the most two-color type icons, with those types being flying, poison, ground, steel, dragon, and question mark or mystery. Unique content in Kanto-based games. The Gen 1 games, as well as Fire Red and Leaf Green, are the only core series games with these characteristics. No Dark-type Pokemon available in the regional Pokedex. The Gen 1 games, Fire Red, Leaf Green, Let's Go Pikachu, and Let's Go Eevee, are the only core series games with these characteristics. The mascot of each game is the evolutionary line of the first partner Pokemon. The main plot does not involve any legendary Pokemon. The pairs of games have exactly the same legendary Pokemon available without trades or events. Introduced content. In the core series, Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green were the first games with these characteristics. The first core series game remakes, the first pair of games not followed by an upper version, first core series games released in the same generation as other core series games, but not as re-releases of the previous games, being released after Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire. Pokemon outside the current regional Pokedex are available without trades or events. Certain legendary Pokemon are available outside of trades or events. Legendary Pokemon outside of the current regional Pokedex are available. Legendary Pokemon from multiple generations are also available. Only one legendary Pokemon is available out of the legendary trio, one of the legendary beasts per game. They have Pokedex entries reused from previously released games. The Gen 1 Pokemon had their Fire Red entries reused from Japanese Pokemon Red and Green, making this the first time when those entries were translated into English. Their Leaf Green entries were reused from Pokemon Red and Blue, originally from Japanese Pokemon Blue. The Gen 2 Pokemon had their Fire Red entries reused from Pokemon Silver. Their Leaf Green entries were reused from Pokemon Gold. Gen 3 Pokemon have new Pokedex entries in Fire Red and Leaf Green, each Pokemon sharing the same entry between both games except Deoxys, who has a different entry in each game. They feature a regional Pokedex which includes some, but not all, members of some evolutionary lines available in the current games. Specifically, Kanto Pokedex does not feature several cross-generational evolutions and pre-evolutions, such as Pichu and Blossom, even though they are available in Fire Red and Leaf Green without trades or events. The availability of some wild Pokemon, in this case the legendary beasts, depends on which first partner Pokemon was chosen. Only items from the item's pocket can be stored in the PC. The Pokedex description of each Pokemon is displayed as a single page instead of 2 pages. Pokemon outside of the regional Pokedex can only become available in post-game. Pokemon breeding only becomes available in post-game. There are 2 Pokemon daycare centers, although only one of them features breeding. Even though I'm wearing these weightlifting gloves as a fun homage to the trainer gloves, they are very impractical for building with Lego. These gloves actually restricted my movement quite a bit, which slowed my ability to grasp and manipulate the smaller pieces. But I still decided to continue using the gloves anyway, and because I like how they resemble trainer gloves, I think I'm going to keep using them for the future Pokemon builds. I'll just try to remember to do some warm-ups in them first to bring back some flexibility. This was my first time playing the actual Leaf Green version for the GBA. By that I mean I skipped these versions, since it was a remake of Red Blue, and you played in the Kanto map in Silver and Gold. So some parts of this game felt completely unfamiliar. In order to get a Venusaur faster, I limited the Pokemon I used and did a lot of off-screen grinding. I was going to try to do a Nuzlocke, but since I had never played this version, I figured I'd save that type of playthrough for a different build. Total build time, 5 hours, 3 minutes, 21 seconds, which means you could watch 13 and a half out of the total 16 total episodes where Venusaur appears across all of the Pokemon animated series. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Remember to like, subscribe, share, ring that bell, all the things for the YouTubes. Thank you.